The wind howled through the trees like a living thing, feral, hungry, and full of warning. I stumbled through the forest, barefoot and breathless, my heartbeat louder than the thunder rolling in the distance. Every branch that snapped under my feet felt like a scream, every gust of icy air a reminder that I didn't belong here. Not anymore. Blood ran down my thigh, warm and sticky. My hand trembled as I pressed it against my belly. The faint pulse beneath my skin wasn't just mine anymore. It was his. The Alpha King's child. I shouldn't be alive. Not after what I'd done. Not after betraying the pack that once called me one of their own. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the world in a flash of silver. For an instant, I saw my reflection in the river ahead, mud-smeared, wide-eyed, a weak Omega with no pack scent and no power to defend herself. The rain began to fall, heavy and relentless, washing away the blood but not the fear. "Keep moving," I whispered to myself, the words barely a breath. "You can't stop now, Lyra. You can't let them find you. Because if they did, it wouldn't just be my life they'd take. It would be his, too. Hours ago, I had still been inside the Moonvale Pack's borders. A servant, a shadow, an Omega who bowed to every order, smiled through every bruise, and never once looked the Alpha in the eyes, until tonight, until the full moon rose, and I felt the bond snap to life like fire in my veins. Impossible, agonizing and cruelly fated. Him, the Alpha King himself, the man who ruled all packs from his silver throne, whose name made even warriors lower their gaze. Kale. When his scent found me across the courtyard, dark pine, iron and storm, I knew something inside me had changed. I'd tried to run then too, but he'd caught me before I took 3 steps. His eyes had burned gold, not with anger, but confusion, recognition, and then, God's help me, desire. He'd whispered something that shattered me. "You're mine!" 3 words that didn't sound like a claim. They sounded like a curse. A wolf's distant howl echoed now through the trees, snapping me back to the present. I froze. The sound was closer this time, low, commanding, laced with authority that vibrated through the air. It wasn't just any wolf, it was him. My pulse faltered. I ducked behind a fallen log, pressing my back against the damp bark. Rainwater dripped from my hair, and my breath came in uneven gasps. The forest pulsed with energy, shadows shifting, mist curling low to the ground. Every sense screamed that I was being watched. Then I saw it. A flash of silver through the trees, huge, silent, moving with deadly grace. The Alpha King's wolf. He was tracking me, not by sight but by scent. The bond tether between us burned faintly like an invisible thread tugging at my chest. I gritted my teeth and tried to fight it, but the pull only grew stronger. I knew he could feel me too. That same maddening link that fate had forged between us was now leading him straight to me. The pain in my abdomen returned, sharp and sudden. I muffled a cry, biting my lip until I tasted blood. "Not now, please, not now." It was too soon, too dangerous. The child inside me stirred faintly, a flutter like a heartbeat of its own. I pressed a trembling hand over it, whispering, "Hold on, little one. We just need to survive the night." The rustle of leaves came from my left. I turned, squinting through the downpour. A silhouette emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, and entirely human this time. The rain hit his bare skin and rolled down in glistening rivulets, steam rising where it touched his overheated flesh. Lyra. His voice was deep, raw, and steady enough to silence the forest. My lungs locked. He wasn't supposed to find me this fast. "Stay back," I warned, though my voice shook. "Don't come closer." He took another step forward, his eyes glowing faintly gold even in his human form. "You shouldn't be out here alone." "You're hurt," I laughed bitterly. "You noticed?" Kale's jaw tightened. "You think I wouldn't? You think I don't feel what you feel?" That thread between us burned brighter at his words, pulsing in rhythm with my racing heart. I could feel him inside me, not in body but in soul, his emotions bleeding into mine, anger, guilt, a strange tenderness he tried so hard to hide. "Stop it," I said, clutching my head. "Stop using the bond." He froze, his expression unreadable. The rain fell harder, flattening his dark hair against his forehead. When he finally spoke again, his voice had softened. "I didn't ask for this either, Lyra, but it's done. The moon chose you. I wanted to scream that he was wrong, that the moon made a mistake, that I wasn't strong enough, beautiful enough, or worthy of being his mate. But the words stuck in my throat. He stepped closer, and I stumbled back until my heel hit the edge of the riverbank. The current roared below, wild and merciless. "Don't come any closer!" I shouted, holding out my hand as if that could stop him. Something flickered in his gaze. Fear. Not for himself, but for me. Then, out of nowhere, the world tilted. A blinding pain tore through my abdomen, knocking me to my knees. I gasped, clutching my belly as the rain blurred my vision. Cale was beside me in an instant, his hand on my shoulder, his scent surrounding me like a storm. "What's happening?" he demanded, his voice breaking for the first time. "Tell me, Lyra." I shook my head, teeth chattering. "It's too early. I can't." Lightning cracked overhead so close it lit the forest in a white blaze. Cale's eyes glowed fiercely as he looked down at me, his control slipping. The wolf in him was near the surface, desperate to protect what was his. "Breathe," he ordered, steady and low. "I won't let anything happen to you. Do you hear me? You're not dying here." His words shouldn't have comforted me, but they did. Even as darkness tugged at the edge of my vision, I felt a strange calm wash over me. The warmth of his hand against my cold skin. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat, strong, unyielding. A sound I'd never forget. And then, just before everything went black, I heard something else. A growl, not from Kyle, but from the forest beyond. Dozens of them, eyes glinting through the mist. Rogues. Cale rose to his feet, body tense, and his voice turned to a snarl. "Stay down, Lyra," but it was too late. They'd found us, and I knew, as the first wolf lunged through the trees, that my escape had only led me into another kind of danger. The sound of the first growl sliced through the storm like a knife. Low. Menacing. Close. Kyle's body shifted instantly, his stance widening, his eyes flaring gold, his expression turning cold and lethal. Rain streamed down his bare chest as he positioned himself between me and the approaching rogues. Even without his wolf form, power radiated off him, thick and suffocating, commanding the forest to obey. "Stay behind me," he said, voice low and vibrating with suppressed fury. I tried to move, but my limbs trembled uncontrollably. The pain in my abdomen pulsed in rhythm with the thunder, sharp enough to blur my sight. I clutched the wet ground, dragging myself back against a tree trunk, watching as dark shapes emerged from the fog. 6, maybe 7 wolves, their eyes burning with hunger and hatred. Rogues. Once pack wolves, stripped of their bonds, cursed to madness. They'd scented weakness. They'd scented me. Kyle's growl rumbled from deep within his chest, answering theirs. "You'll regret stepping into my territory." One of the wolves, a massive gray with a torn ear, snarled and lunged. Cale didn't flinch. He met the attack head-on, shifting mid-air. Bones cracked, muscles expanded, and his form burst into a swirl of silver light. The transformation was violent and breathtaking, a dance of raw power that made the air hum. Then he landed, no longer a man but a beast of pure dominance. His wolf was enormous, silver-black fur shimmering under the lightning, eyes like molten gold, teeth bared in a snarl that made even the rogues hesitate. The forest fell silent for one suspended heartbeat, and then chaos exploded. Cale moved like a storm unleashed. He tore into the rogues with merciless precision, each motion a blur of strength and speed. The clash of fangs, the crack of bones, the desperate whimpers, it was brutal, primal, and terrifyingly beautiful. Even outnumbered, he fought like a god of war, and through the chaos I realized something. He wasn't just fighting for dominance. He was fighting for me. One of the rogues broke past him, a smaller black wolf with burning red eyes. It lunged straight for me. I screamed, curling protectively around my belly. But before the creature could reach me, Cale slammed into it from the side, knocking it to the ground with bone-shattering force. His jaws locked around its neck, and with one savage jerk, silence. The others fled. Panting, bleeding, but unbroken, Kyle stood over their fallen bodies until the last growl faded into the rain. Only then did his eyes return to me, still glowing faintly gold, but softer now. The storm raged around us, yet in that moment, all I could hear was my heartbeat and his low, guttural breathing. I wanted to speak, to thank him, to ask why. But when he stepped closer, his wolf form rippled with light and folded back into his human body. Bare, blood-stained, and trembling with restrained energy. "Are you hurt?" he asked, kneeling beside me. His voice was hoarse, deep, still echoing with the growl of his wolf. I shook my head weakly. "You shouldn't have—" "Don't!" he cut in sharply, his gaze burning into mine. "Don't tell me what I shouldn't have done when your blood's on the ground." His words struck something deep in me. For a moment I saw not a king, not an alpha, but a man haunted by fear he couldn't name. I swallowed hard. "They would have killed me." He nodded once, his jaw tightening. They would have tried. The way he said it, like no force in this world could ever take me from him, made my chest ache. I hated that it did. Cale's hand hovered uncertainly before touching my face, wiping away a streak of mud. His fingers were warm despite the rain. "You shouldn't be out here," he murmured. "Especially not in your condition." My heart lurched. You know?" His eyes flickered toward my stomach, then back to my face. "I can feel it through the bond. You're carrying life. My life." I looked away quickly, ashamed, terrified, furious at the truth of it. "It's not something I wanted. You know that, Cale." "I didn't choose this either, Lyra," he said quietly. "But fate doesn't care what we want." Minutes passed before either of us spoke again. The forest had grown eerily calm after the fight, just the steady drum of rain on leaves and the distant rumble of thunder. Cale shrugged off what was left of his torn cloak and draped it over my shoulders. It smelled like pine, smoke, and something darker, something that always made me tremble inside. He crouched beside me, inspecting the scratches on my arms. "You're freezing." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're bleeding. I've had worse." His lips twitched faintly, but his eyes remained unreadable. "You always say that." The way he said always told me he'd been watching longer than I realized. A memory flickered. His gaze on me at the pack gatherings, the way his presence always made my wolf restless. I'd thought he was disgusted by me. Maybe I'd been wrong. He sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. "We need to move." "The rogues won't stay gone for long. There's a cabin not far from here." I hesitated. "You want me to go with you?" "You think I'd leave you in this storm?" he asked, his tone rough but not unkind. "You're not safe alone, Lyra, not now. Not while you're carrying my heir." The word made me flinch. He noticed. "I'm not your property," I said quietly. "And this child doesn't make me your possession." His gaze softened then, surprisingly. "I never said you were." We stared at each other through the rain, the air between us heavy with things unsaid. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to still. The glow in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something gentler. Sadness? Regret? He reached for me again, slower this time, giving me the chance to pull away. I didn't. His fingers brushed my cheek, tracing the bruise there. "You've been running a long time," he murmured. "From me, from them, from yourself," I tried to answer, but my throat closed up. The truth was, he was right. I'd been running since the night the bond formed. Because if I stayed, I'd lose more than my freedom. I'd lose myself. He helped me to my feet, steadying me when I swayed. "We'll talk when you're warm." "Can you walk?" I nodded faintly, leaning on him more than I wanted to admit. Every step was agony, but he matched my pace without complaint, his arm firm around my waist. Despite everything, his power, his arrogance, the danger he represented, his touch felt safe. We moved through the dark woods, the rain softening to a drizzle. In the distance, through the mist, I saw the faint outline of a cabin, small, isolated, smoke curling weakly from the chimney. It looked abandoned. When we reached the door, Kyle pushed it open with one hand and ushered me inside. The warmth hit me instantly. The faint glow of embers still alive in the hearth, the scent of old wood and herbs. He guided me to a chair and knelt before the fire, coaxing the flames higher. The light caught on his skin, scars, muscles, the sharp line of his jaw. For the first time, I saw the exhaustion beneath his strength. "You should rest," he said softly, not looking at me. I wrapped the cloak tighter around myself. "Why are you doing this?" He paused, staring into the fire. "Because fate tied me to you. Because I can't change what the moon decided." His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "And because the thought of losing you tonight made me feel something I thought I'd buried a long time ago." The flames flickered, painting gold light across his face, and even though I wanted to hate him, to run again, something inside me broke instead, a wall I'd built for years. I looked at him and saw not the Alpha King, but the man beneath the crown, the one fate had bound to mine, whether I was ready or not. Outside, the storm began to fade. But inside, a different kind of storm was only beginning. The cabin creaked in rhythm with the storm's retreat. The air smelled faintly of smoke and pine sap, warm but heavy, thick with tension neither of us dared to break. The firelight painted the room in shifting gold, flickering over Cale's face as he crouched by the hearth, feeding the flames. His silhouette looked carved from shadow and fire, half man, half myth. I sat curled in the corner chair, the cloak drawn tight around me, still shivering despite the heat. My body ached from exhaustion, but it wasn't just physical. The silence between us was heavier than the rain that had followed us all night. Kyle finally spoke, voice low. "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry," I murmured. He didn't argue. He just nodded once and stirred the pot he'd set over the fire, a simple mix of herbs and broth. The scent filled the room, grounding me. It was strange, this gentleness from him. The same man who had terrified me hours ago now moved with deliberate quiet, as though afraid one wrong word might make me bolt again. I stared at him, unable to stop myself from asking softly, "You've done this before, haven't you?" He glanced over his shoulder. "What? Taking care of someone like me?" A shadow passed through his golden eyes. "No," he said simply. "Not like you." The answer shouldn't have meant anything, but my heart reacted before my mind could stop it. When the broth was ready, he brought it to me without a word. I hesitated before taking the bowl, my fingers brushing his as I did. A jolt of warmth shot through me, not from the fire, but from that simple, accidental touch. The bond pulsed faintly between us, that invisible thread tying our fates together. I wanted to pull away. I didn't. Cale crouched beside me, watching as I took a small sip. The taste was plain but comforting. His presence, though, made it impossible to relax. I could feel his eyes on me. Not in dominance this time, but something else. Something searching. "You haven't slept," he said. "Neither have you." His lips curved faintly. Kings don't sleep easily. The way he said it carried a kind of sadness I didn't expect. He leaned back, running a hand through his damp hair. The firelight caught the faint scars across his knuckles, old battles, old ghosts. For the first time, I noticed how tired he looked beneath the strength. "Kyle," I said quietly, "those rogues, how did they find us?" His jaw tightened. "They weren't after you by accident." "Then who sent them?" He hesitated before answering. "There are factions that want me dead, Lyra. Pacts that think the Moonveil line should end. You being with me?" He exhaled, gaze meeting mine. "It makes you a target, too." The words hit hard. "So I'm not just cursed? I'm hunted." "You're not cursed," he said sharply, as if the idea offended him. "You were chosen." "Chosen." I laughed bitterly. "To be bound to a man who terrifies me? To carry a child that will make every pack in the kingdom want me gone? That's not fate, Cale. That's punishment." His expression softened then, all alpha authority melting into something far more human. "You think I wanted this?" he whispered. "Do you think when I first felt that bond spark I wasn't furious too?" I looked up sharply. "You were angry?" At myself. At the moon. At whatever cruel joke fate thought this was. His eyes glimmered like molten gold under the firelight. "But when I saw you fall tonight, when I thought—" He broke off, jaw tightening again. It stopped feeling like a curse. I didn't know what to say. The silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of flames. He rose and crossed to the window, looking out at the forest. His back was to me, broad and unyielding, but I could feel the conflict burning in him through the bond. Fear, protectiveness, longing he couldn't admit. The emotions weren't just his anymore. They echoed inside me like my own. The bond was growing stronger, and I was terrified of what that meant. "You should rest," he said again, still facing the window. "I can't," I whispered. "Not while I feel this." He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "The bond?" I nodded. "It's like you're everywhere. I can feel when you breathe. When you're angry. When you're hurting. It's too much." Cale walked closer, the firelight casting gold shadows across his skin. "It's because you're not shielding yet." "Shielding. Learning to close your mind to the bond," he explained softly. "It takes time. Until then, everything bleeds through." I met his eyes. "Then teach me." The request came out quieter than I intended. But Cale didn't mock or question it. He simply nodded. "All right. Close your eyes." I hesitated but obeyed. The warmth of the fire brushed my skin. I heard him move closer, felt the subtle shift in the air as he knelt before me. His voice was low, steady, the kind of tone that carried weight and safety. "Breathe. Focus only on your heartbeat. The bond will try to distract you, my scent, my thoughts, everything. Let it fade." It was easier said than done. Every inhale pulled in the scent of him, storm, pine, and something darker that made my pulse quicken. I tried to steady myself, but the bond hummed between us like a live wire. "I can't—" "Yes, you can," he murmured. "You're stronger than you think." His hand brushed mine, grounding me. The contact wasn't intimate, but something in it felt ancient, like two souls touching where flesh couldn't. Slowly, the noise in my mind dulled. The pull eased, and for the first time in days, the world inside me went quiet. When I opened my eyes, Cale was still there watching me. A faint smile touched his lips. "See? The moon didn't choose a weak Omega after all," I wanted to argue, to remind him what my pack had called me: useless, fragile, expendable. But his words lingered, warm and dangerous. I whispered, "You don't know me." He tilted his head. "No, but I want to." The way he said it wasn't a command. It was a confession. The fire burned low. I could barely keep my eyes open, the exhaustion finally winning. Cale stood and draped another blanket over me. His movements were careful, almost reverent. As my consciousness began to fade, I heard his voice again, softer than before. "Tomorrow when the sun rises, I'll take you back to safety." I forced my eyes open. "Where?" "To my pack," he said. "Where you and our child will be protected." Fear shot through me like ice. "No, I'm not going back to any pack," he frowned. "You think you can survive alone?" "I have before. You won't now," he said quietly. "You're carrying part of me." There was no arrogance in his tone, just truth. And that truth scared me more than any threat outside these walls. I turned my face toward the fire, unable to meet his gaze. "You don't understand. The others, they'll never accept me. The Alpha King's mate is supposed to be strong, pure blood, not an Omega servant." Cale's voice hardened. "They'll accept what I tell them to. Even if it destroys you politically?" I whispered. "Even if your council calls me a disgrace." His silence was answer enough. When I finally drifted into sleep, I thought I heard him whisper one last thing, so quiet I wasn't sure if it was real. "I'd rather defy the moon than lose you again." Outside, the clouds thinned, revealing a full, watchful moon. Its pale light spilled through the cabin window, touching my face where I slept, and Kyle's where he stood guard. The bond shimmered faintly between us, unseen, unbreakable. But neither of us knew yet that the moon's blessing always came with a price. Dawn crept into the cabin quietly, silver light filtering through the cracked shutters, touching the edges of Cale's face as he sat by the dying fire. His back was to me, but even half asleep I could sense the tension in him. His every breath was controlled, deliberate. The Alpha King never truly rested. I blinked awake slowly, disoriented by warmth. The night had been mercifully still after the storm, and the ache in my body had dulled to a steady throb. The faintest movements of life inside me, the child's heartbeat, reminded me why I couldn't afford to let my guard down. For a long moment I simply watched him. The scars that crossed his shoulders caught the light like pale silver threads, marks of battles I couldn't imagine. For all his power, Cale looked almost human like this. Barefoot, hair tousled, his head slightly bowed. He must have felt my gaze because he spoke without turning. "You didn't sleep long." "Neither did you," I murmured, echoing the same words we'd shared last night. That earned a faint exhale, almost a laugh. "You're observant." "I had to be," I said quietly. "It's how I survived." He finally turned then, his golden eyes soft in the morning light. "You're safe here, Lyra. You don't have to keep watching for shadows. Safe." The word sounded foreign on his tongue, maybe even on mine. Before I could answer, the faint snap of a branch outside froze us both. Cale's expression changed in an instant, eyes sharpening, muscles coiling with alertness. He rose to his feet soundlessly, motioning for me to stay back. "Cale?" He didn't reply, already moving toward the door, every step silent despite the wooden floorboards. The Alpha in him was awake now, his senses honed, his energy predatory. I pushed myself up, the blanket falling from my shoulders, and strained to listen. The forest outside was too quiet. No birds, no rustle of leaves, just stillness. Then, another sound. Footsteps, 2, maybe 3, heavy, purposeful. Cale opened the door, stepping into the early morning mist. I followed, ignoring the warning look he threw me. The forest smelled of dew and smoke, but beneath it something else. Wolf scent, familiar and unwelcome. From between the trees, figures emerged, 3 men, tall and broad, their eyes glowing faintly amber even in human form. Wolves. "Alpha Cale," the first one said, bowing slightly. "We've been searching all night." Cale's posture didn't relax. "By whose order?" "Your betas," the man replied carefully. "The council was worried when you left the Moonvale estate without notice. We tracked your scent as instructed." His gaze flicked briefly to me, curiosity sparking before he looked away. "We didn't expect to find you here." Cale's tone was icy calm. "You found nothing. You'll return to the stronghold and tell the council I'm handling a private matter." The man hesitated, exchanging a glance with his companions. Alpha with respect. "Rumors are spreading. They say the king has vanished during the full moon. Some think you were attacked. Then let them think what they want, Kale snapped. The air around him pulsed, heavy with his alpha command. The wolves stiffened instantly, eyes lowering. You have your orders. Yes, Alpha. They backed away, retreating into the forest as swiftly as they'd appeared. When they were gone, Kyle's shoulders dropped slightly. He turned back toward me. You shouldn't have come outside, I frowned. They were your men. Why hide me from them? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was light but deliberate, because not everyone in my pack would accept what you are. His words stung. An Omega? He shook his head slowly. No, Lyra. My mate. The word mate hung between us like a live flame. I took a step back, heart pounding. You can't keep saying that. I didn't choose this. Neither did I, he cut in, voice rough. But that doesn't change the truth. You felt the bond last night. You know what it is. Yes, I felt it, I whispered. And it scares me. He studied me for a long moment, his eyes unreadable. Then his tone softened. Fear doesn't mean it's wrong, maybe not. But the world we lived in didn't care about right or wrong. It cared about bloodlines, rank, and fate. And fate had never been kind to me. We returned inside in silence. Kale poured water into a basin, and I knelt beside it, washing the dirt from my hands. He knelt across from me, cleaning the cuts along his forearms. His movements were efficient, practiced. I couldn't help but notice the faint shimmer of silver beneath his skin, the trace of magic that marked him as more than just a shifter. I'd heard whispers growing up, legends that the Alpha King's bloodline carried something older, something blessed or cursed by the moon itself. I didn't believe them then. Now, watching him, I wasn't sure I could deny it. Kyle, I said softly. What are you? He looked up, surprise flickering across his features. What do you mean? The rogues knew you were here before anyone else. You fought 7 of them and didn't fall. You moved faster than any wolf I've ever seen. And when you shifted... I hesitated. Your aura, it wasn't just alpha strength. It was something else. He didn't answer immediately. His gaze dropped to the water, rippling faintly with his reflection. There are things the world isn't meant to know, he said finally. Truths that would bring war if spoken aloud. So you're hiding something. He met my eyes then, a faint smirk ghosting across his lips. We both are. The word sent a shiver down my spine. He was right. I hadn't told him everything either, about why I'd run before the bond fully formed, or the strange dreams that had started since then. Dreams where the moon whispered my name, and I saw flashes of silver fire consuming a throne that looked a lot like his. The fire crackled, breaking the tension. Kale stood and moved toward the door again, scanning the forest beyond. His instincts never seemed to rest. We can't stay here much longer, he said. The council will start asking questions. Then what happens to me? You'll come with me. I shook my head immediately. No. If your pack sees me, they'll obey. He interrupted, his tone final. Even if they think I'm unworthy? His eyes softened slightly. If they challenge my choice, they challenge the crown. No one will dare, he sounded so certain. But I could feel the unease beneath his confidence, the faint ripple through the bond that betrayed his fear. Not of me, but of losing control over something far larger than either of us. Before I could respond, a sudden gust of wind rattled the shutters. The fire dimmed, as if snuffed by an unseen force. My pulse spiked. Kyle went still, every muscle tensing. Stay here. He stepped to the window, scanning the forest again. The sky outside had darkened unnaturally fast, though the sun had barely risen. A pale shimmer spread across the clouds, forming a strange silver glow. Then I heard it. A voice. Faint, echoing, and distinctly female. Not from outside, from inside my head. Daughter of the broken moon, your path leads to ruin. The words were cold and ancient, and they froze me where I stood. I clutched my stomach, trembling. The presence faded as quickly as it came, leaving only silence and the faint hum of the bond between us. Kyle turned sharply. What did you hear? I met his gaze, fear in my voice. She spoke again. The moon goddess, his eyes darkened. What did she say? That I'm leading us to ruin. For the first time since I'd met him, Kale looked genuinely afraid. His jaw tightened, and the gold in his eyes flickered like fire barely contained. She's never spoken to a mortal twice, he said quietly. Not unless the prophecy has begun to unfold, I frowned. What prophecy? He hesitated, then whispered, "The one that says the Alpha King will fall, by the hand of his fated mate." The fire died completely then, plunging the room into cold shadow, and I realized, with a chill that went deeper than fear, the real danger might not be from the rogues, the council, or even fate itself. It might be from me. The fire had died completely, but the echo of the moon goddess's voice still lingered in the air like smoke. I could still feel it, cold and ancient, brushing against my soul as if marking me. Kale stood by the door, one hand braced against the wooden frame. The light from outside cast sharp lines across his face, making his golden eyes look almost metallic. He was the picture of control, except for the faint tremor in his breath. "The Alpha King will fall by the hand of his fated mate," he repeated, more to himself than to me. The prophecy was supposed to be just a myth. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering, though the air wasn't that cold anymore. "Myth or not, she spoke to me. Twice." He turned toward me then, his gaze heavy with something I couldn't name. Fear? Anger? Or was it destiny's cruel recognition? "Lyra," he said quietly, "I need you to tell me exactly what she said." "Every word." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking voice. "She said, 'Daughter of the broken moon, your path leads to ruin. That's all.'" Kyle's jaw tightened. "Broken moon," he murmured. "That's not just a warning. It's a title." My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" He paced the small space, restless energy rolling off him in waves. "Long ago, there was a prophecy about a female born under a fractured moon, a shifter whose bond would either save or destroy the Alpha line. They called her the daughter of the broken moon. And you think that's me?" His gaze locked with mine, the golden glow flaring faintly. "I don't think—" "I know." Silence stretched between us. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was just a weak Omega who'd barely survived her own pack's cruelty. How could I possibly be part of something divine or dangerous? I shook my head, voice breaking. "That's impossible. I'm no one, Kale. I don't have power. I don't have a pack. I don't even have a place in this world anymore." He crossed the space between us in 2 strides. "You have me," he said firmly. "And if the goddess chose you, there's a reason." "But what if that reason is to destroy you?" I whispered. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then, to my surprise, Kale's lips curved into a small, almost sad smile. "Then I suppose the moon herself has a cruel sense of humor?" He reached out, his hand hovering just above my shoulder, as though he was afraid I might vanish if he touched me. "Lyra, I don't care what prophecy binds us. You're not my downfall. You're my fate." His words should have comforted me. Instead, they made my chest ache with something I couldn't name. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that fate wasn't just another word for punishment. But the goddess's voice echoed in my head again, sharp as a blade. "Your path leads to ruin." By midday, the forest outside had returned to its eerie stillness. Kale spent most of the afternoon reinforcing the perimeter of the cabin, scattering protective runes carved into stones around the clearing. I watched him from the window, his movements precise and focused. He didn't need to say it. I could feel his unease through the bond. A low hum beneath my skin that matched my heartbeat. When he finally came back inside, his shirt clung to him from the heat, and a few stray locks of hair fell across his forehead. I busied myself with something, anything, to keep from staring. "You've been quiet," he said, setting his weapons aside. "I've been thinking." "About the prophecy?" I nodded. "And about what it means to be your mate." He froze mid-motion, then turned to face me. "Does it frighten you that much?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It feels like being chained and protected at the same time." He studied me for a long moment before stepping closer, slow enough that I could have stopped him. I didn't. When his hand lifted, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face, I felt the bond pulse between us. Alive, electric. "You're not my prisoner," he said softly. "You never will be, but if you stay by my side, I can't promise your life will ever be simple again." "I never wanted simple," I whispered. Something shifted in his expression then, a flicker of warmth, or maybe surrender. He lowered his head slightly until his forehead rested against mine. "Then whatever comes, we face it together." The hours passed slowly after that. The bond between us hummed in quiet waves, more felt than seen. When night fell again, Kyle lit a single candle, its flame throwing soft gold across the room. I sat by the window, the moonlight bathing the floorboards in silver. "You should sleep," he said from across the room. "So should you." He gave a faint, almost amused sound. "Kings don't get to sleep easily." I turned toward him. Even kings need peace sometimes. His gaze softened at that. You sound like someone who's already lived too many lifetimes. Maybe I have, I said quietly. Every night before this one felt like a lifetime I was trying to escape. He didn't reply, but something in his posture eased. He leaned against the wall, watching me. The silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was a strange sort of comfort, like two storms finally learning how to exist side by side. But the peace didn't last long. Outside, a low howl echoed through the valley, long, mournful, and unfamiliar. Cale's head snapped up immediately. That's not one of mine. I stood, my chest tightening. Rogues. Worse, he muttered, moving toward the door. Hunters! The next few minutes blurred together. Cale grabbed his blade and motioned for me to stay low. The air thickened, humming with energy. I could sense movement. 3, maybe 4 presences approaching fast from the tree line. The door burst open before Cale could reach it. A man stepped inside, tall, cloaked in black, eyes glowing faintly violet. He wasn't a wolf. His scent was wrong, cold, metallic. Human, but not. Alpha Cale, the stranger said, his voice eerily calm. We finally meet. Cale's hand tightened on his blade. You've made a mistake coming here. I don't think so. The stranger's gaze flicked to me, and a cruel smile spread across his face. The moon's chosen one, pregnant, fragile, and bound to the king? How poetic. My breath caught. How do you know who I am? Everyone who serves the goddess knows the prophecy, he replied. And some of us intend to fulfill it. Cale moved faster than I could blink. In one smooth motion, he pushed me behind him and lunged forward, his blade catching the candlelight as it sliced through the air. The stranger blocked it effortlessly with a wave of his hand. Magic crackled, invisible but strong enough to throw Cale back against the wall. The cabin shook. Stop! I screamed. The man's gaze met mine, and for an instant, I saw something flicker behind his cold eyes. Recognition. You don't even realize what you carry, do you? He hissed. The child you bear is not just of royal blood, it's divine. My pulse thundered in my ears. What are you talking about? But he only smiled. You'll find out soon enough, daughter of the broken moon. A flash of violet light filled the cabin, blinding me. When it faded, he was gone. Kyle staggered to his feet, fury burning through his golden eyes. He found us, he growled. And now they'll all come. I touched his arm gently. Kyle, what did he mean about the child? He didn't answer. His silence said everything. Outside, the wind howled again, this time carrying a faint whisper that only I could hear. Destiny cannot be rewritten. But as Cale pulled me close, his hand trembling slightly against mine, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, we would try anyway. The mountain air burned my lungs as we climbed higher, the snow thickening beneath our boots. The world below had vanished into fog and shadow. No light, no scent of life, just silence and cold. Cale moved ahead of me, every motion precise and deliberate. Even now, when exhaustion pulled at his frame, he looked like a creature sculpted from strength itself. I followed his tracks, stepping where he stepped, too afraid to fall behind. We'd been walking for hours since the attack. No fire, no rest. Just running from the man who knew too much, running from the truth that I was terrified to face. When I stumbled, Cale turned instantly. You're slowing, he said softly. Not scolding, just observing. I'm trying, I breathed, clutching my side. The dull ache in my abdomen had returned, heavier with every mile. I can't keep up much longer. He hesitated for the first time, eyes flickering from the path to me. The wind howled around us, whipping snow through the air. Then, without a word, he knelt in front of me. Get on, he said. I blinked. What? He didn't look back. You're not walking another step. I can handle your weight. My pride flared. Kyle, I'm fine. He turned his head slightly, and the look in his eyes silenced me. It wasn't command, it was concern. You're not fine. You're carrying my air, Lyra. You shouldn't even be on your feet right now. The words hit me harder than the cold wind. My air. For a heartbeat, I saw something unguarded in his expression. The Alpha King, ruthless and feared, was afraid, not for himself, but for me. I exhaled shakily and climbed onto his back, wrapping my arms around his shoulders. The heat from his body seeped through me, melting the chill in my bones. His scent, pine, rain, and faint smoke, filled my lungs, grounding me in a way nothing else could. Hold on, he murmured. And when he started walking again, it felt like the mountain itself bowed beneath his strength. We didn't speak for a long time. The only sounds were the crunch of snow beneath his boots and the distant rumble of thunder rolling across the peaks. When I finally broke the silence, my voice was small. "Kyle, that man from the cabin. He said our child isn't just royal. He said it's divine." Kale's shoulders tensed under my hands. "He was trying to scare you." "But you didn't deny it," I whispered. He stopped walking. The sudden stillness made my heart pound. Slowly, he turned his head, just enough that I could see the gold in his eyes flickering through the dim light. "There are things about the Alpha bloodline you don't understand," he said quietly. "Things that even I wish were lies." "Tell me," he hesitated. Then, in a voice that carried the weight of centuries, he said, "Every Alpha King is chosen not by birth, but by the moon herself, our strength, our senses. Even the beast within us, it's not entirely wolf. There's something older, something divine. When that power passes to a child conceived under a full moon, it creates what legends call a moonborn heir." The word sent a chill through me. A moonborn. "That's what I'm carrying." His silence was my answer. I swallowed hard. "So this isn't just about your throne. It's about the balance between the mortal and the divine." Kyle started walking again, his voice low and rough. "If that child is born under the next full moon, the goddess herself may lay claim to it. And that's what the hunters want. To use the divine bloodline to reshape the packs." I pressed my forehead against his shoulder. "Then we can't let them find us." He didn't respond, but his pace quickened. By the time night fell, the storm had eased. Kale found us shelter beneath an ancient stone archway, half buried in snow. The ruins looked old, older than the packs, older than the wars. Strange markings spiraled across the stone, faintly glowing silver under the moonlight. "What is this place?" I asked. "A sanctuary," he said. "Once used by our ancestors to commune with the goddess. No mortal scent can track us here." I sank to the ground, exhaustion finally overtaking me. The snow beneath the arch was dry and soft, almost like sand. Kale knelt beside me, brushing the frost from my hair. His fingers lingered longer than they needed to. "You're freezing," he murmured. "You're not exactly warm either," I said, my voice trembling. His lips twitched into the faintest smile. "You're deflecting again." "Maybe I'm scared." "Of me?" I looked up at him, at the glow in his eyes, at the sharp planes of his face softened by worry, and shook my head. "No, of how much I don't understand." He exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and a growl. "Then let me change that." Before I could ask what he meant, he lifted his hand and placed it gently against my chest, over my heart. For a moment, nothing happened. Then warmth spread through my body, slow, steady, and alive. The markings on the stone around us pulsed in response, glowing brighter. "What are you doing?" I breathed, "showing you what I am." The air shimmered. Shadows peeled away from him like smoke, and his true form began to surface. Not the beast I'd glimpsed before, but something more. His eyes flared bright gold, his skin tracing with light like molten silver veins. For a heartbeat, I saw it, the essence beneath the Alpha, wild and divine. "Kyle," I whispered, awe and fear colliding in my chest. "You're not just a wolf," he nodded slowly. "I was born from both worlds, flesh and moonfire. And the child you carry will be even more." The glow dimmed, and the moment passed. Kale's hand dropped away, leaving a strange emptiness behind. "Now you know why they'll never stop hunting us," he said quietly. "A moonborn heir can tip the balance of power between packs, or end it entirely." I stared at the runes still glowing faintly behind him. "You could give it all up. The throne, the power. Start over somewhere far away." His gaze met mine, soft but steady. "And abandon you?" The sincerity in his voice made my chest tighten. I wanted to look away, but he reached out and tilted my chin upward until I met his eyes. "You think you were the weak one in this story," he said, voice low. "But you ran through the night alone, carrying my child. You faced the moon goddess herself and lived. You are not weak, Lyra. You are the reason I still fight." The words undid me. My throat closed, tears spilling silently before I could stop them. Kale brushed one away with his thumb. "Don't cry," he whispered. "Not for me." I didn't answer. I just leaned forward, resting my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my palm. He hesitated for a moment before wrapping his arms around me, holding me like something sacred. Outside, the storm returned, wind howling through the mountains, but in that hollow, ruined sanctuary, it felt like time itself had stopped. For the first time, I wasn't running. For the first time, I felt safe. But deep down, I knew safety never lasted long in a world built on prophecy. And somewhere beyond the snow, in the forest below, a dozen violet eyes opened in the dark. The hunters had found our trail again. The wind died suddenly. The world outside the sanctuary went still, too still, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Cale's arm tightened around me as his head turned sharply toward the entrance. His pupils narrowed to slits. "They're here," he said quietly. The warmth between us vanished in an instant. He rose, every muscle tensed, every movement silent as shadow. The faint golden light in his eyes ignited again, reflecting against the frost-coated stone. I pushed myself up on shaking legs. "The hunters?" He nodded once. "Their scent is faint but close. They're masking themselves with ash root. Smart." Fear clenched my stomach. "Kyle, we can't fight them." He cut me off, voice calm but hard. "We can't run either. Not now." He stepped closer, cupping my cheek for the briefest second, and I caught the flash of something human behind all that steel. "I need you to trust me, Lyra. Whatever happens, stay behind the inner circle of the runes. They'll protect you and the child. But what about you?" His lips curved faintly, half a smile, half a promise. "I'm not so easily killed." The first arrow hit the stone arch with a sharp clang. Cale moved before I could blink, pulling me down behind him as the second arrow sliced through the air where my head had been seconds earlier. Shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing, dark figures, fast and silent, circling the ruins like wolves made of smoke. "Stay down!" Cale snarled, shifting halfway, his human form blending with something larger, stronger. Bones cracked, muscles expanded, and the sound of power filled the air. He didn't fully transform, but his eyes glowed pure gold now, his claws half-formed and glistening under the moonlight. "Cale, there are too many!" I cried. He bared his teeth. "Then they've come to die!" The first hunter lunged through the shadows, blade raised high. Cale caught him mid-air and slammed him into the ground so hard the earth shook. Two more came from the left, but Cale was faster, a blur of silver and gold. His claws tore through the mist, through armor and bone, until the air smelled like iron and smoke. I should have been terrified, but I couldn't look away. This was what he truly was, half man, half god, fighting not for power but for me. Still, there were too many of them. For every hunter that fell, two more appeared, emerging from the mist with glowing violet eyes and runes etched across their arms. They weren't human anymore. They'd been marked by something unnatural. Cale growled, frustration bleeding through his focus. "They've been bound by blood magic." One of the hunters raised his hand toward me, chanting words I didn't understand. A pulse of violet light burst from his palm, rushing straight toward me. "Cale!" I screamed. He turned just in time. The spell hit him square in the chest. He staggered, roaring, the sound echoing through the mountains. His skin flickered with light, like cracks spreading across glass. "Cale!" I crawled forward, ignoring the searing cold beneath my palms. "No, please!" He dropped to one knee, panting hard, his body trembling under the strain. "Get back! Inside the circle!" But before I could move, something inside me snapped, like a thread pulled too tight. A wave of warmth surged through me, deep and ancient. The runes around the stone walls blazed to life, their silver light turning white-hot. The air hummed with power, not from Kyle, not from the mountain, from me. The nearest hunter froze, his violet eyes wide. "The prophecy," he whispered. I didn't understand what I was doing, but I could feel it. The life inside me, my child, was awake. Its heartbeat synced with mine, and every beat sent another pulse of light through the air. Kyle looked up, eyes full of shock and awe. "Lyra, stop! I can't!" I cried. The ground trembled. Snow lifted from the earth and swirled around me, glowing like starlight. The hunters tried to advance, but the light repelled them, burning through their armor like acid. Their screams filled the clearing as they fell one by one, consumed by the very magic they had sought to control. When it was over, silence returned. The light faded. My knees gave out, and I collapsed into Cale's arms. He caught me easily, pulling me close, his breathing ragged. The scent of blood and smoke clung to him. "It was you," he whispered, voice raw. "You unleashed that power." I shook my head weakly. "No, it wasn't me. It was the baby." He stared down at me, golden eyes flickering with both wonder and fear. "The child protected you." The words hung heavy between us. If the unborn child already held that kind of power, divine, uncontrollable, what would happen when it was born? We stayed in the ruins until dawn, the fire crackling softly as the snow melted around us. Cale's wounds healed faster than I expected, though his expression stayed distant. He sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders, his gaze lost in the flickering flames. "You should rest," he said quietly. "I can't," I whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. The way the light burned them. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" I looked at him, my voice breaking. "I don't even know what I am anymore, Kale. I'm not just your mate. I'm carrying something. Dangerous." He turned toward me, eyes softening. "You're not dangerous, Lyra. You're the bridge between two worlds, the mortal and the divine." "That's what the goddess intended." I shook my head. "But if that's true, then the prophecy, the Alpha King will fall by the hand of his fated mate, means I'll destroy you." Cale's jaw tightened. "Prophecies can be misread. They're warnings, not certainties. But what if it's not misread?" I whispered. "What if the only way for the child to live is for you to die?" He didn't answer. The silence between us was unbearable. I could hear the faint crackle of the fire, the rhythm of his heartbeat. When I spoke again, my voice trembled. "Kyle, if that day ever comes, promise me you won't fight it. Promise me you'll protect the child." He turned sharply, his eyes burning gold again. "Don't ask me that, please." His hand came up, gripping my chin gently but firmly. "I would burn the world before I let either of you die. Do you understand me?" I met his gaze, tears welling in my eyes. "Then you'll die trying." He didn't speak again. Instead, he pulled me close, wrapping me in his warmth until my shaking stopped. For a long time, we just sat there, two souls bound by fate, trapped between love and prophecy. Outside, the first light of morning spilled across the snow, painting the world in silver. And far away, beyond the mountains, a figure cloaked in black stood beneath a dying moon, watching the horizon. "The moonborn lives," he murmured, a cruel smile curving his lips. "And the Alpha King's time is running out." The sun had barely risen when Kyle and I began our journey toward the Lycan capital. The air was sharp, the forest heavy with the scent of pine and frost. Every step forward seemed to pull us deeper into a silence that wasn't quite natural, as though the woods themselves were listening. Cale walked ahead of me, broad shoulders tense beneath his dark cloak. I could tell he hadn't slept. His wounds had healed, but something inside him had not. I kept my distance, partly because he needed space, but mostly because I was afraid. Afraid of what I'd done, afraid of what I might still do. When the hunters died in that flash of light, I'd felt it. Something ancient stirring inside me, something far beyond my control. And now, with every heartbeat, I felt it again, faint but persistent, like the echo of power trapped beneath my skin. Cale glanced over his shoulder. "You're quiet." "I'm trying not to faint," I said softly. "It's a long walk for someone who hasn't eaten since last night." He stopped, exhaling. "You should have said something." "I didn't want to slow you down." "You're not slowing me down, Lyra." His tone softened, and for the first time since the attack, I saw a flicker of warmth in his eyes. "Come, we'll rest by the river." The river was narrow but fast-moving, its surface silver under the morning light. Cale knelt beside it, filling a small leather flask. I watched as he dipped his fingers into the stream, his movements fluid, almost reverent. There was always something controlled about him, too precise, too guarded. Even in stillness, he looked ready to fight the world. I sat a few feet away, hugging my knees. "You said last night that the goddess intended this." "Whatever I am, how can you be sure?" He looked up at me, water dripping from his fingers. "Because the signs began long before you were born. The moon goddess doesn't create accidents, Lyra. She creates balance. And when the world falls into chaos, she sends a force to correct it." I frowned. "A force? Or a weapon?" Cale's jaw tightened. "Maybe both." He stood, walking toward me with a quiet intensity. "The power that awoke in you, it's not something to fear, but it's not something to ignore either. The Lycan seers may be able to help you understand it." "Seers?" I repeated, wary. "They're the oldest of my kind," he said. "They remember what the rest of us choose to forget." "Then they'll know what I am?" His gaze met mine. "They might." The way he said it sent a chill through me. Might, not will. We traveled for hours after that, the forest changing as we moved north. The trees grew taller, their trunks covered in silvery moss that shimmered faintly under the light. I could feel magic here, not raw and wild like the night before, but ancient and patient, watching, waiting. Cale seemed to know every turn, every hidden trail. But he never said how. At one point I asked, You've been here before, haven't you? He hesitated, then nodded once. A long time ago? With someone else? His silence was answer enough. I tried to swallow the strange sting of jealousy. It was stupid. This man had saved my life more times than I could count, but that didn't mean I owned his heart. Still, something in me twisted when he looked away. We crossed a ridge just before dusk. From the top, I could see it, the ruins of an ancient city, half swallowed by snow. Great stone pillars jutted from the earth like broken teeth, and a faint blue mist coiled between them. That's the outer gate of Eralis, Kyle said. It used to be the heart of the Lycan Empire. It's beautiful, I whispered. Beautiful, he agreed, and cursed. We made camp near one of the fallen arches. Kale built a small fire, the flames painting gold across his face. I watched him silently, tracing the faint scar on his jaw with my eyes. It wasn't fair how human he looked when he was like this, calm, quiet, almost vulnerable. Kale? I said softly. He didn't look up. What are you hiding from me? His hand froze mid-motion. What do you mean? I swallowed. You knew about this place. You knew the hunters were coming, and you knew what I might be. But you never told me why. He didn't answer right away. The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. Finally, he said, because some truths do more harm than lies. That's not an answer. He lifted his head then, meeting my gaze. His eyes caught the firelight glowing faint gold. You want honesty? I nodded. Then listen carefully. He leaned forward, his voice low, deliberate. The reason the hunters are after you isn't because of your bloodline. It's because of mine. I stared at him. Yours? My ancestors weren't just alphas, Lyra. They were the first Lycan kings, the ones who forged the bond between wolf and moon. When the goddess chose me as her vessel, she gave me a gift. And a curse, I frowned. What curse? He hesitated, his hand closing into a fist. Every generation, one descendant of the Alpha bloodline is born with the power to either unite or destroy the entire Lycan race. That power was supposed to awaken in me, but it didn't, I realized slowly. It awoke in the child. He nodded, eyes dark. And that means the goddess rewrote fate itself. I felt my breath catch. Kale, if that's true, it means the balance is broken, he said. And there are those who will do anything to restore it, even if it means killing you and the child. The fire between us burned low. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Kale reached across the space between us and brushed a lock of hair from my face. His touch was gentle, almost trembling. You asked what I'm hiding, Lyra. The truth is, I don't know how long I can keep you safe. Every moment we spend together, I feel the bond growing stronger. And the stronger it gets, the more dangerous it becomes. Because of the prophecy? Because of me. I searched his face, trying to find the monster he thought he was. But all I saw was a man breaking under the weight of destiny. Kyle, I whispered. You're not my enemy. He gave a small, broken laugh. Tell that to the moon. Without thinking, I took his hand. His skin was warm, rough, familiar. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then he turned his palm to intertwine our fingers. The bond pulsed, soft, electric, alive. And in that moment, I felt it again, the heartbeat inside me syncing with his. Slow, steady, in perfect rhythm. He felt it too. I saw it in his eyes, the shock, the awe, the fear. What is this? I whispered. The beginning, he said. That night I dreamed of the moon. Not the gentle crescent I'd grown up seeing, but a burning silver disk, full and endless. Beneath it stood two figures, a man and a woman bound by chains of light. One looked like Kale, the other looked like me. But when I reached out to touch him, the light turned red, and the world burned. The morning came wrapped in a veil of mist. The ruins of Eralis looked even more haunting in daylight. Vast stone columns rising out of fog, their surfaces carved with runes that glimmered faintly whenever the light shifted. The world felt hollow, like the ghosts of Lycans past still lingered here, whispering through the cold wind. Kale was already awake, crouched near the embers of the fire, sharpening his blade with slow, deliberate strokes. I watched him from my spot beside the collapsed arch, reluctant to break the silence that had settled between us after last night. His words echoed in my head. The goddess rewrote fate itself. If that was true, then everything, the hunters, my pregnancy, our connection wasn't random at all. It was orchestrated, preordained. But why? Kale glanced up, sensing my eyes on him. We should move soon, he said quietly. The seers don't like visitors after dusk. You've met them before? I asked, standing and brushing frost from my cloak. His gaze flickered. Once I was younger, desperate. For what? He hesitated, then answered, to break my bond with the goddess. The admission stunned me. You tried to reject her? He gave a hollow smile. I thought I could choose my own fate. I was wrong. There was pain behind those words, deep, buried pain that made me ache to know more. But Kyle was already turning away, hoisting his pack over his shoulder. Whatever wounds he carried, he had no intention of reopening them. Not yet. We followed a narrow path that wound between shattered walls and snow-dusted stairways. The ruins stretched farther than I'd imagined, an entire city lost beneath the earth. Strange symbols shimmered faintly on the stones, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. The deeper we went, the colder it became, not just in temperature but in spirit. The air was thick with energy, as though every breath belonged to someone else before me. Stay close, Kale murmured. The ruins test outsiders. How? You'll see. Moments later, a faint hum filled the air. The ground vibrated beneath my feet, and shapes began to move within the mist, faint outlines of wolves, translucent and shifting. They circled us silently, eyes glowing pale silver. I froze, my pulse pounding. Kale, don't move, he whispered. They're shades, memories of the old bloodline. If they sense fear, they'll feed on it. The spirits came closer, brushing past like cold wind. One paused before me, its form flickering. I saw its eyes, calm, ancient, endless, and then it was gone, fading back into the fog. I let out a shaky breath. They knew me. Kale's gaze softened. They know what you carry. The tunnel opened into a wide circular chamber. At its center stood a pool of crystal-clear water, surrounded by faintly glowing stones. A figure knelt beside it, draped in silver robes that shimmered like moonlight on water. Her hair was white as snow, her eyes a deep violet. Kale of the Blood Moon line, she said, her voice echoing softly. You returned to Eralis after all these years. Kyle bowed his head. Seer Liara, I come seeking truth. Her gaze drifted to me, assessing. And you bring a mortal. Not mortal, he corrected quietly. Moonborn. At that, the seer's eyes widened slightly. She rose, her expression unreadable. Impossible. She bears my child, Kale said. And with it the mark of the moon's choosing. Liara stepped closer, studying me. Her gaze lingered on the faint glow beneath my skin, the mark I hadn't noticed until now, just below my collarbone, pulsing faintly in the same rhythm as my heartbeat. She is not meant for this world, the seer whispered. And yet, she is bound to it. I felt exposed, fragile under her scrutiny. What am I? I asked. Liara's eyes met mine. You are the rewriting of destiny itself. The goddess once bound her power to the Alpha King's line, to control balance through blood. But now, that power has passed to one who was never meant to bear it. She looked at Kyle, then back to me. You have both broken the bloodline pact. Kale stiffened. The pact was lost centuries ago. Liara shook her head. No, it was sealed up by your ancestors. It forbade the merging of mortal and alpha blood under divine mark. You've done more than merge them, Kale. You've created something the moon cannot predict. The weight of her words settled heavily between us. So what happens now? I asked, my voice trembling. The world will shift to correct itself, Liara said simply. The balance will demand sacrifice. The hunters are only the beginning. Kyle stepped forward. Then tell us how to stop it. You cannot stop what's already begun, she replied. But you can choose how it ends. She reached into the folds of her robes and drew out a shard of glass. No, not glass. Crystal. It pulsed with soft lunar light. This is the tear of Selene. It can reveal the truth within the bloodline. But beware. Truth cuts deeper than any blade. Without hesitation, Kale took it. We'll find the truth whatever it costs. Liara's gaze softened. Pity, not approval. Then may the goddess show mercy on you both. Outside the ruins, the air had turned colder. The sky was bruised purple, heavy with snow. Kale walked in silence, the crystal glowing faintly in his hand. I could feel it even from where I stood. A pulse, steady and alive, like a second heartbeat between us. Finally, I asked, You really think that thing can tell us the truth? I don't think, he said quietly. I know. What if you don't like what it shows you? He stopped walking, turning to face me. I already don't like what I've become, Lyra. The truth can't make it worse. I stepped closer, searching his face. You're not the monster you think you are. His expression wavered. For a moment, I saw something raw and unguarded flicker in his eyes. Then he said, voice low, "You should sleep soon. Tomorrow the crystal will show us what binds us and what breaks us." He turned away, but I caught his hand before he could move. "Kyle," I whispered, "whatever happens, whatever we find, promise me you won't leave." He froze. The tension in his shoulders eased, just barely. Then he nodded once, his fingers tightening around mine. "I promise." That night I couldn't sleep. The fire burned low, throwing shadows against the ruins around us. Kale sat nearby, the crystal resting in his palm, light washing across his face. It pulsed softly, and with each pulse, I felt something in my chest respond. I pressed a hand over my heart. The rhythm matched perfectly. Then the crystal flared, bright enough to make Kale flinch. He looked down, and for an instant the light illuminated his veins, glowing silver beneath his skin. Our eyes met, wide, breathless. The tear of Selene had begun to awaken. The crystal's light pulsed like a living heart between us. Kale's hand trembled slightly as silver veins glowed beneath his skin, spreading from his wrist up to his forearm. The tear of Selene shimmered brighter, its light dancing against the ancient ruins. "Kyle," I whispered, my voice shaking. "What's happening?" He didn't answer. His jaw was locked, teeth gritted as though he were fighting something inside. The glow climbed higher, crawling along his neck. I reached for him instinctively, but he jerked back. "Don't!" he rasped, his voice deep, inhuman for a heartbeat. "If it senses you too soon, it'll burn you." "It's reacting to you," I said, watching the light pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. "The seer said it shows truth." "What is it showing you?" He met my eyes, and for the briefest moment, his irises blazed gold. "The part of me that should have died long ago." The wind howled through the ruins as Kale staggered to the edge of the firelight. His shadow warped, stretching too far and too wide. I could hear a faint growl under his breath, low and primal, like the sound of a storm forming in his chest. "Kale," I said softly, stepping closer despite his warning. "You're scaring me." He closed his eyes, breathing hard. "I told you once that I was chosen by the goddess. That wasn't the whole truth. Then tell me the rest." "I wasn't just chosen," he said slowly, his voice low and raw. "I was bound. My soul split in two the night I inherited the Alpha Crown. Half man, half beast. The goddess called it balance. I called it a curse." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. "So you mean—" He nodded, opening his eyes. "When you see the Alpha King of Blood Moon, the monster they whisper about, you're looking at me. The wolf isn't just my other form, Lyra. He's a part of me I can't control." The fire flickered violently, responding to the weight of his words. I took a slow breath, searching his face. "And the child?" He hesitated, the first real fear I'd ever seen in him. "That's what the tear is trying to reveal. It's not just reacting to me. It's reacting to you both." The crystal floated between us, rising from Kale's palm. Its glow deepened from silver to pale blue, then to a sharp, blinding white. A wind rushed outward, sweeping through the ruins like an invisible wave. I gasped, shielding my eyes, but in that light images began to form. Visions, a moonlit battlefield. Wolves bowing to a radiant figure draped in silver, the moon goddess herself. And beside her, a man with golden eyes. Kale. The goddess touched his chest, and a shard of her own light entered him, the same light that now pulsed in my unborn child. The vision shifted again. I saw a small form, a child, glowing faintly under the moonlight, surrounded by shadows. Hunters knelt before it, then turned their weapons away as though unable to strike. "The moonborn," I whispered. The light fractured suddenly, the image collapsing into darkness. I staggered back, clutching my chest. My pulse was racing. Kale caught me before I fell, his arm steady around me. "Breathe, Lyra, it's over." "No," I whispered, trembling. "It's not over. That vision, it means the goddess didn't curse you. She planned this. She planned us." His eyes darkened. "Don't you see? That's worse. It means every choice I thought I made, every life I took, every vow I broke, wasn't mine. It was hers. You saved me," I said fiercely, grabbing his collar. "You chose to save me. You chose to protect me when you didn't have to. That's not the goddess, Kale. That's you." For a heartbeat, his expression cracked, the iron calm melting into something raw and uncertain. He sat beside me, elbows on his knees, the tear dimming in his hand. "The seer warned us that truth cuts deep," he murmured. "She was right. I leaned closer, resting a hand on his arm. Then we face it together. He looked at me, and something unspoken passed between us. A fragile, silent understanding that went beyond words. The air between us hummed faintly with warmth, not from the fire, but from that same strange pull that had connected us since the night in the forest. "Lyra," he said softly, "you don't understand what this means. The moonborn child. It could be the salvation of my kind, or the destruction of both our worlds. If the Pax find out, they won't," I interrupted. "Not yet. We'll figure it out first." He gave a small, tired smile. "You talk like fate is something you can outsmart." I smiled faintly back. "Maybe I can." For the first time, he laughed, low, quiet, but real. It was the sound of a man who hadn't laughed in years. The snow began to fall, soft and soundless. Cale rose, pulling his cloak tighter around me. "We can't stay here. The tier's light will draw attention. There's a mountain ridge 2 hours north. We can shelter there." I nodded, slipping my hand into his. His grip tightened around mine instinctively, steady, protective. As we walked through the fading ruins, I glanced back at the circle where the tier had glowed. The light was gone, but faint etchings remained on the stones, marks that hadn't been there before. Runes. I didn't understand their meaning, but I could feel their weight. Something had been awakened. By the time we reached the ridge, night had fallen again. The forest spread endlessly below us, dark and shimmering under the moonlight. Cale built a small fire, then sat opposite me, his expression thoughtful. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. He looked up at the moon, the firelight tracing the lines of his face. "Now we decide whether to hide or fight. And what do you want?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached across the fire and touched my hand. His fingers were cold, but his touch burned through me all the same. "I want a future that isn't written by anyone else," he said finally. "Not the goddess. Not the Pax. Not prophecy." My heart twisted. "Then we'll make one." The bond between us pulsed again, stronger than ever, an invisible thread that tied our hearts to the same rhythm. The moon above flared brighter, its silver light wrapping around us like a promise. Neither of us noticed the shadow moving beyond the trees, a figure cloaked in black, watching from the dark. The hunters had found us again. The fire had burned down to faint orange embers, hissing quietly beneath the cold breath of the mountain wind. Cale hadn't slept. I could tell by the way his eyes never left the darkness beyond the ridge. Every sound, every shift of snow made his shoulders tense, his head tilt slightly, like a predator scenting danger. I knew that look now. It wasn't the Alpha King of Blood Moon sitting by that fire. It was the beast beneath his skin, the one he'd spent years fighting to keep caged. I wrapped the cloak tighter around me, shivering as the night pressed in. "You hear them, don't you?" I asked softly. His gaze flicked to me, gold glinting faintly beneath the blue of his irises. "They're close. 3 of them, maybe 4. Hunters. How long before they reach us?" He tilted his head slightly, listening again. "Minutes," I swallowed. "Then why aren't we running?" He stood slowly, his movements unnaturally fluid, graceful in that way that reminded me he wasn't human. Not completely. "Because I've spent my whole life running, Lyra. And tonight, I'm done." The forest was silent when the first arrow struck the snow between us, quivering upright. A silver head, poison-tipped. Cale's eyes flared, catching the firelight like molten gold. "Stay behind me," he growled, his voice slipping an octave lower, the faintest echo of his other self. The shadows shifted. Figures emerged, cloaked, masked, weapons gleaming pale in the moonlight. The hunters. One stepped forward, lowering his hood. He was older, scar tracing his jaw. His voice carried a cruel calm. "Alpha Cale of Blood Moon," he said. "By order of the Council of Silver Creed, you are bound by the Hunter's Oath. Surrender your power, or die under moonlight." Cale's lips curled. "You swore that oath to protect the balance, not to destroy it." "The balance died when you broke your vow," the hunter hissed. His gaze shifted to me. "And took a mortal to your bed." Cale moved before I could even blink. One moment he was still, the next a blur of motion and heat. His hand caught the hunter's wrist mid-strike, twisting until bone cracked. The man cried out, the sound swallowed by the wind. The others raised their weapons. But Cale didn't kill him. He released the hunter and stepped back, breathing hard, the moonlight reflecting off the faint shimmer of his claws. "I don't want blood," he said, though his voice trembled with restraint. Leave now before I lose what's left of my control. You're already lost, the hunter spat, stumbling back. You and the witch who carries your cursed air. I flinched, but Kale was faster. His body blurred again, and when he stopped, the hunter was pinned to a tree, Kale's hand around his throat. The firelight flickered wildly, casting monstrous shadows across the snow. Say that again, he whispered, voice low and deadly. The hunter's eyes widened, not in fear, but in recognition. You don't even know, do you? He rasped. What she carries isn't just your air. It's the key. The moonborn can open the gate of eclipse, the same one that destroyed your father's line. Kale froze. His grip loosened slightly. That's a lie. The hunter coughed, grinning weakly. Ask your precious goddess! A snarl tore from Kale's throat, sharp, animal. For an instant, the air shimmered with heat, his body rippling like light through water. His shadow twisted, too long, too jagged. I could almost see it. The wolf inside him pushing to break free. Kale, I whispered, stepping forward. Stop, please. He turned toward me and my heart skipped. His eyes, no longer blue, not even gold. They burned molten white, like the light of the tear of Selene itself. For a terrifying heartbeat, I thought he didn't recognize me. Then he closed his eyes, exhaled, and the glow faded. The hunter collapsed to the ground, gasping. Kale staggered back, pressing a hand to his temple. Get out, he growled. Tell your council the Alpha King answers to no one. The hunters retreated quickly, dragging their injured leader with them, until their footsteps vanished into the forest. Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. Kale sank to his knees in the snow, shoulders trembling. I knelt beside him, laying a hand on his back. His skin burned with feverish heat. You held it back, I whispered. You stopped yourself. His breathing was rough, uneven. Barely. I brushed the wet strands of hair from his forehead. That's what makes you different from them. You think monsters stop themselves? A weak smile touched his lips. You always find light in the dark, don't you? Maybe, I said softly, because you're the reason it still shines. He looked at me then, really looked. Not as a protector, not as an alpha burdened by prophecy, but as a man who finally saw the possibility of peace. The distance between us disappeared before I realized I'd moved. My hand lingered on his jaw, tracing the line of stubble, the faint scar beneath his lip. His breath hitched. For a moment, the whole world held still, and then gently he pulled away. I can't, he said, his voice rough. Not until I know what I am. Until I'm sure I won't hurt you, or what we've created. I nodded slowly, though my chest ached with unspoken words. Then we'll find out together. The fire had almost died when Kale finally spoke again. What the hunter said about the gate of eclipse. I looked up. You believe him? I don't know. His gaze drifted toward the horizon where faint gray light hinted at dawn. But if the moonborn truly can open it, that means others will come. The council won't stop, and the packs will turn on us when they learn why the goddess chose you. Then we have to reach the seer before they do, I said. She knew this was coming. Maybe she knows how to stop it. He nodded, resolve hardening in his eyes. Then at first light, we move. As the stars began to fade, Kale rose and extended his hand to me. His palm was calloused, warm, strong enough to shatter stone, yet when I placed my hand in his grip was careful, almost reverent. For the first time, I didn't feel like the weak Omega everyone called me. I felt chosen. The moonlight glowed faintly behind him, framing his figure in silver. His shadow stretched long across the snow, human at first, then faintly shifting, its outline blurring into something lupine. But he didn't notice. He was already leading me down the ridge, toward the unknown. As we disappeared into the trees, I glanced back one last time and froze. In the distance, the hunter's arrow still stood where it had struck the ground earlier. Its tip was glowing faintly now, the silver burning brighter with every heartbeat. Something ancient had been awakened by the tear's light, and it wasn't finished with us yet. The sun barely touched the edge of the horizon when we left the ridge behind. The forest was waking, slow, reluctant, and veiled in mist. Every tree seemed to whisper our names, the air thick with the kind of silence that meant something was listening. Kale moved ahead of me, his steps quiet but sure. I tried to match his pace, my breath fogging in the cold. The night had drained me, yet there was something restless under my skin, an energy that wasn't mine. It pulsed faintly in my chest, matching the rhythm of the tear of Selene that still glimmered beneath my clothes. "Lyra," Kale said suddenly, without looking back, "you're pushing yourself too hard. We'll rest when we reach the falls." "I can keep up," I replied, though the lie came with a wince. He stopped, turning toward me. His eyes, calm, unreadable, softened when they met mine. "You don't have to prove you're strong. You already are." I didn't know what to say to that, so I looked away, pretending to fix the strap of my satchel. "And what about you? You didn't sleep at all." A faint smile curved his lips. "Alphas don't sleep when their hearts are restless." His words lingered, quiet, unintentional poetry. But behind them, I caught something else. Fear. Not for himself, but for me. We reached the falls by mid-morning. The water thundered down from the cliffs, spraying a cool mist that clung to our skin. Kale found a small clearing nearby, hidden beneath pine and shadow. He motioned for me to sit as he knelt beside the stream, rinsing the blood from his knuckles. The faint red swirled away into silver ripples. "Those hunters last night," I said carefully, watching the way his jaw tightened. "You knew them, didn't you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the reflection in the water, as though the truth might be easier to confess to his own ghost. "They were once part of my pack," he said finally, "before the council turned them into enforcers. The Silver Creed doesn't forgive disobedience. And they called you cursed." He looked up, his eyes shadowed. "Because they believed the curse of the blood moon began with me. That I was born under the wrong alignment, a king fated to destroy what I was meant to rule." My heart clenched. "And do you believe that?" Kale's gaze dropped again to his reflection rippling in the stream. "I used to, until I met you." I froze. His tone wasn't tender, it was raw, like a confession dragged out of him by the weight of silence. "Since the night I found you," he went on, "the beast inside me, quieted. It listens to you, Lyra. It knows you." "Knows me?" I repeated softly. He nodded. "Every time you're near, the darkness in me pulls back. I don't understand it, but I think the moon goddess does." The tear of Selene warmed faintly against my skin as though responding to his words. I touched it through my blouse, uneasy. "Kyle," I whispered. "The hunters said something about the Gate of Eclipse." "That the child I carry could open it. What does that mean?" He hesitated, then stood, his shadow stretching long across the grass. "It means the moonborn, our child, may be the balance between worlds. But if the prophecy is true," he trailed off. "If it's true," I pressed, his gaze flicked to me, haunted. "Then the child could also end both." We walked again by midday, deeper into the forest. The air grew warmer, scented with moss and rain. Somewhere ahead, the path forked, one trail leading down into the misty valley, the other toward the mountain pass where the seer was said to dwell. Kyle stopped at the split, eyes scanning the ground. He crouched low, brushing his fingers across the dirt. "Tracks," he murmured. Fresh, not human. A chill ran down my spine. "Wolf?" "Too heavy." "Too deep." He stood and reached for my hand, pulling me closer. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens." I opened my mouth to ask what he saw, but the answer came before the words. A low growl rolled through the trees. The bushes trembled. From the shadows stepped a creature, hulking, massive, with fur blacker than smoke. Its eyes gleamed like molten amber. It was a wolf, but not like Kale's other form. This one was twisted, feral. "Wrong." Kale's hand tightened around mine. "A rogue," he muttered. "Goddess help us!" The creature's gaze locked on me. It bared its teeth, saliva glinting in the sunlight. Kale pushed me back. "Run!" But I couldn't. Something in me froze, not from fear, but from recognition. My heart began to race, the same strange pulse from earlier burning stronger. The rogue leapt. Kale met it midair, his body blurring in a flash of silver light. I heard the crack of bone, the snarl of two beasts colliding. The fight was chaos, claws, teeth, and fury. Kale moved like a storm, faster than I could follow, but the rogue was relentless. Then, a scream. Not his, mine. Because as the blood hit the snow, the tear of Selene flared against my chest. The world tilted. Suddenly, I wasn't just watching the fight, I was inside it. I could feel Kale's pain, his rage, his hunger. His wolf's heartbeat pounded in my skull, echoing mine until I couldn't tell where he ended and I began. And through that connection, I felt something call, a whisper, soft and ancient. "Moonborn," it said. "Awaken." The light burst from my hands before I even realized I'd moved. It streaked across the clearing, striking the rogue in the chest. The creature howled, not in agony, but in fear, and bolted into the forest, leaving a trail of burning frost behind it. The light faded. My knees gave out. Kale caught me before I hit the ground. His eyes, golden now but filled with worry, searched mine. "Lyra, what did you just do?" I don't know," I breathed. "It wasn't me. It was the tear," he finished, glancing at the faint blue glow still shimmering beneath my collarbone. "It's reacting to your blood." He looked away, jaw tightening. The seer was right. "You're more than the moon goddess's choice. You're her echo." I blinked at him, dizzy. "Her what?" He brushed a trembling hand over my hair, his touch both protective and uncertain. "It means the goddess didn't just bless you, Lyra. She rebirthed through you." The wind stirred, carrying the faint sound of wolves howling somewhere far below. Kale lifted his head, listening. "They're coming," he said grimly. "The packs will have felt that surge." I touched his arm. "Then we need to reach the seer before they do. She's the only one who can tell us what's happening." He nodded, pulling me gently to my feet. "You're right." His voice softened. "But you need to trust me completely from now on, no matter what you see or hear." "I already do," I said quietly. Something flickered behind his eyes. Something warm and painful all at once. He didn't reply. He only squeezed my hand and led me toward the mountain pass, where the mist had begun to glow faintly silver. As we disappeared into it, the last thing I heard was the faint echo of that whisper. "Moonborn." The eclipse rises, and I knew deep in my bones that whatever destiny had written for us was only just beginning to unfold.